But at the same time, we have to understand that Hashimoto's is more of an immune system problem rather than a thyroid problem. Our thyroid is just the one that's being affected. Hey guys, Dr. Bodle here. Now for many people, they can struggle for years with thyroid symptoms due to Hashimoto's, and finally getting on a medication can be a relief. However, this relief can quickly transition into further frustration when you don't feel much better or you continue to battle lab values that just aren't cooperating. Unfortunately, I think a lot of this comes from poor communication from our doctor, which leads our expectations to be a bit off. So let's talk today about why thyroid medication isn't a fix for Hashimoto's, why it usually doesn't help you to feel better or improve your symptoms, and if medication is something that you need, how you can set your expectations appropriately and strategize with your doctor to get the most out of it. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I've noticed that a lot of you have been doing more of that lately. I really appreciate your kindness and your support. Now that we've got our priorities nailed down, you might be wondering after that intro, Dr. Brad, isn't thyroid medication supposed to help us out with thyroid problems? And I can see how that might be a little confusing. Now, as always, whenever we're having some sort of health problem, we always want to ask ourselves, what is causing that health problem? The better that we can understand and identify that underlying mechanism, the better we can match our therapy or treatment to that mechanism. And that should allow us to achieve the best outcomes. When it comes to Hashimoto's, thyroid medication has nothing to do with the underlying mechanism. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition, and thyroid medication does not help our immune system to better regulate. Instead, you can think of it more like a patch to help replace the thyroid hormone that your gland is no longer making because it has received damage over the years. So here's an analogy for you. We've said before that almost every cell in the body needs thyroid hormone. That's because every cell has a job or a function, and to be able to do that job, it needs a healthy metabolism. Thyroid hormone helps us to achieve that metabolism. But instead of providing support to our cells, let's think of our cells as different plants in our garden, and thyroid hormone as the water that we have to carry to those plants. A great way to deliver water to those plants is to use a watering can. That way you can fill it up at the spigot, and then you can walk around your yard or garden and get water to the plants that need it. But what if, after years of use, your watering can starts to develop a hole at the bottom? Now you're spilling water everywhere, and you might not have any water available when you finally get out to your plants, and that doesn't make anyone very happy. Now, if we were to follow the standard model for addressing this problem, we would say, hey, your plants aren't getting enough water because your watering can is always low. So the best way that we can fix that is whenever you start to run low, you need to go back to the spigot and fill your can back up to the top. So yes, temporarily, this does fix our problem with low water levels. And if we hustle, we might be able to get some of that out to the plants that need it. However, it's never addressing the cause, which is that we have a hole in the bottom of our watering can. And we will continue to have problems until that hole gets fixed. Filling the can back up with water is only a management of the symptom. So if we bring things back to our thyroid, again, the amount of water is like the amount of thyroid hormone in our system. And the hole in the bottom of the watering can is Hashimoto's. Due to continued autoimmune activity and increased levels of antibodies, we will continue to damage our thyroid gland and impair its ability to make thyroid hormone. But filling the bucket back up or adding thyroid medication doesn't have any direct impact on managing the way our immune system works. So of course, our body does need thyroid hormone, and it's not a good idea to let it get too low. But at the same time, we have to understand that Hashimoto's is more of an immune system problem rather than a thyroid problem. Our thyroid is just the one that's being affected. And this is why using thyroid hormone replacement medication isn't a great way to address these problems. But even though thyroid medication isn't helping us to fix the hole in the bottom of our watering can, wouldn't it be nice if it at least helped us out with some of our symptoms? Well, unfortunately, that's not always the case either. Aside from the fact that Hashimoto's can lead to low levels of thyroid hormone, the damage that is occurring to our gland also creates another problem for us. Anytime we injure tissue, there's going to be associated inflammation. Just like if you twisted your ankle, it would be hot, swollen, and painful afterwards. Now, when it comes to our thyroid and Hashimoto's, the injury isn't due to something mechanical. In this case, it's due to our immune system. And the inflammation isn't local like it would be with a sprained ankle. Instead, it tends to be more systemic in nature. Inflammation tends to gunk up hormone receptors and therefore can impair the way that hormones work. And because of this inflammation that we're now experiencing globally, even though we might have the right amount of thyroid hormone, it's not going to be able to bind to its cellular receptor and stimulate the metabolism in the way that we would like it to. So whether we're producing T4 naturally or it's something that we're receiving from medication, it's not going to work efficiently. And if that last step, that binding of the hormone, doesn't take place, then we're not going to activate our metabolism and we're going to have all those low thyroid symptoms. So again, we could have all the T4 in the world, our TSH could look perfect, but if inflammation is blocking it, then it's not going to do us much good. Now, I did want to note that there are a couple situations where thyroid medication can help out with Hashimoto's symptoms, but it's through an indirect mechanism. So if you are someone who started taking medication and you were like, hey, my fatigue isn't that bad, or maybe I'm not gaining weight like I was before. These things are still possible, but I want to make sure that you understand why. The first is, when it comes to hormone receptors that are being disrupted due to inflammation, they still have the capacity to bind hormone, but their ability to do so has been diminished. This means that sometimes the regular amount of hormone that's available in our bloodstream probably isn't enough to stimulate that receptor in a way that is functional and helps us to feel appropriate. Therefore, one of the ways that we can circumvent this problem is by just bumping up the total amount of thyroid hormone that's available. I think of this a little bit like throwing darts at a dartboard. If we only have one chance to hit the dartboard, it's possible that we might miss. But if we have 10 chances, now it's much more likely that one of those darts is going to hit the mark. So if we only had 1 unit of thyroid hormone trying to bind to a receptor, that hormone can do it, but there's less of a chance that it will do it when we compare it to maybe having 10 units of thyroid hormone. The other way that taking thyroid medication can help with Hashimoto's is by reducing some of the stress on the body if our T4 levels have gotten too low. Hormones that are too high are inflammatory to the body, and hormones that are too low are inflammatory to the body. So sometimes just getting those up into a more normal range can reduce some of that inflammation and stress, which therefore takes some of the stress off of our immune system. In our dartboard scenario, any time that someone can feel a little bit better is a good thing. But it's usually not something that lasts because, like we've been talking about, it doesn't have anything to do with the underlying mechanism. In our second scenario, where we're looking to avoid our T4 levels getting too low, we should always be looking for different options and opportunities to reduce stress on our immune system. This can be a helpful way to support our body overall, but we just want to keep in mind that there's probably other stressors that we need to manage as well. If there weren't, then taking T4 medication would be the answer for everyone, and we wouldn't be having this discussion. But as we've noted throughout the video, yes, some people do need medication. And also, in certain scenarios, it can be somewhat helpful with our symptoms. But even though this isn't the only strategy we want to use when it comes to Hashimoto's, if it is a strategy we're going to use, we want to make sure that we're maximizing the benefits and outcomes. So as you're working on managing your Hashimoto's and you're strategizing with your doctor, talking about things like your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise, and your stress management, here's a few things that you can discuss with regards to the medication. First of all, keep in mind that there is no perfect medication and there is no perfect dose. And if you believe that you have to find those two things for you to be able to solve your Hashimoto's, you're unfortunately going to end up wasting a lot of time and effort. Remember, Hashimoto's is all about autoimmunity, and thyroid medication is not going to fix that part of our physiology. So even though there won't be a moment where the heavens open up and the angels sing, we still want to make sure that we're leveraging this to the best of our ability. If you are working through different medications with your doctor, the first thing that you want to ask is, does your body tolerate the medication? Even if two medications have similar active ingredients, there can be different binders and fillers. And for people with autoimmunity, we know that you tend to be a bit more sensitive to different stimulants and irritants in the environment. So if you start taking a medication and begin to feel worse, your hair starts falling out, you begin to get more bloated, your weight starts going up, and your numbers go a little bit crazy, then it's pretty obvious that that medication probably isn't for you. Now, I really want to stress this because I've had a number of patients before be told by their doctor that they need to take T4. And maybe in that scenario, the doctor was 100% correct. But even if they needed that specific type of medication, if they start to react to everything else that's involved in that medication, then it doesn't matter how much they need the T4. The delivery mechanism isn't working for them. To think of it in a slightly different way, it would sort of be like if you needed more calcium in your diet and you thought, oh, dairy is a great way to bump up my calcium intake. Now that line of thinking is totally reasonable, but what if you have a really severe and bad gut reaction whenever you have dairy? Well, it doesn't matter that dairy has the nutrient that you need because it causes you to become so inflamed. Any potential benefit is being outweighed by the negative reaction. So that's the first thing that you need to work out with your doctor. Does it fit with your body? Does it fit with your immune system? And does it cause any negative responses? If you are feeling worse, then we definitely want to look for other options. And the second big adjustment that we can make is asking, what is the form of thyroid hormone in a particular medication? Now remember, I already said that there is no perfect medication, and one form is not going to be better than another. It just depends on fit. But just so you're aware of the options, we can have synthetic T4, synthetic T3, or naturally desiccated thyroid, which is typically derived from pig glands, standardized, and contains both T4 and T3. In general, most doctors are going to go with some sort of T4 option. But even though that's the standard, there's a lot of evidence, both in the research and anecdotally, that people can have success on any of these options. Over the years, it seems that doctors tend to shy away from T3 because it is the more active version of thyroid hormone. Now, that can be a good thing in certain situations, but for some people, it can give them insomnia, anxiety, also contribute to things like heart palpitations, all of which are things that are better for us to avoid. There's also been discussions about naturally desiccated thyroid hormone having variable amounts of hormone from dosage to dosage. And while that might have been true when these medications originally came out, it's no longer a problem as all of these medications are tested and standardized. So sure, we always want to understand the medication and be aware of the potential drawbacks, but if we're not benefiting from one option or another, or if we're even feeling worse, then it makes sense that we should look into other options. I mean, that seems like one of the simplest things that we could suggest. Plus, long-term meta-analyses have shown that for people who don't see a lot of improvement with T4 alone, adding in T3 is a reasonable option, and as long as they don't notice any immediate side effects, there isn't any long-term danger in taking a T4-T3 combo. So once you find a medication that doesn't exacerbate any symptoms, and you tweak and work with different combinations to figure out what makes you feel the best, and also what makes your numbers look the best, then even though we know this isn't going to be the holy grail for addressing our Hashimoto's, it gives us a good foundation to work off of, and as some of those other pieces start to fall into place, hopefully this can be one more thing that is already addressed, and it allows our recovery to be much more efficient and much quicker for us. So in the United States, we allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise directly to consumers. And after a commercial lists off all of these potential symptoms, there's always this finishing line, which is, ask your doctor about if such and such medication is right for you. And I kind of feel like that's how I'm closing out today's video. So when you're working with your doctor and you're trying to find the best options to help support your Hashimoto's, ask them what your options are. and make sure that it's included as part of a global or larger picture regarding your health, where we are managing and optimizing all of those other potential immune system triggers. That way we can reduce stress and inflammation on our system and allow our thyroid to function more normally. If you like this video but have a question, make sure to leave me a comment down below. If you found this information helpful but still feel like you need some more help and you'd like to work with me one-on-one, then you can start that process by sending an email to contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com and my staff will reach out and get in touch with you. If you'd rather work on things on your own at home, then feel free to grab either one of my free downloads listed down in the description box. And if you've just been enjoying the channel and content overall, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you're notified when new videos are available on Thursdays. Don't forget to follow me on social media. Links for that are also down below. But my name is Dr. Bodle. Love you guys, hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next one.